At this time, I'd like to welcome everybody to the Traffic Commission meeting of October 26, 2017. Would everybody please rise and salute the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're going to start today's meeting with public hearings. I'm going to go out of schedule a little bit, and I'm going to take Joanne McKenna, item number 3. Joanne, is that correct?
And there's a last one to Everard Ave.
Okay, and
Which is item.
that's on 4 on request.
Yeah, so if we can take them all together, that'd be great.
Okay, we'll have to do one at a time, but we'll do
Okay.
it. But as of now, we're on the public hearing. So we have a motion filed by Council McKenna to request to amend Schedule 9 of Title 10, resident parking sticking areas by adding the following. Locations, directions we're going to start with Sale Street, southerly, the entire length. Leverett Avenue, both sides, the entire length. Endicott Avenue, southerly, the entire length. I'm going to open up to the public for proponents, people who are in favor of this application for resident sticker parking. Seeing, hearing none, I'll close that side of the hearing and open up to opponents. Any opponents? Seeing, hearing none, I'll open this up to Council McKenna.
With the discussion with you, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to eliminate Leverett Ave because of the park. So it would be just Sale Street and Endicott Ave, the entire length.
Okay. Anybody else like to add anything to this? Members of the commission?
Thank you.
We order this to a public hearing. All those in favor? Aye, the ayes have it. At this time, we'll move over to requests for Council McKenna, and this is item number. Yeah, but it is, but there's requests at the end that have to be ordered to a public hearing. So, okay, we're taking it out of order right now, Chief. Council McKenna has a doctor's appointment. Council McKenna requests that the Traffic Commission amend Schedule 8 of Title 10 from Everard Ave, southerly, Bennington Street to Belle Isle, 15-minute parking during school hours, and to Everard Avenue, southerly, Bennington Street to Belle Isle Ave, 2-hour parking during school hours. Council McKenna.
So what's happening is the parents are complaining because they're going in for parent-teachers conference during the day when the school's in session, and they only have 15 minutes parking, and their conversations are lasting an hour and a half. And it's only in front of the school. It's not up to Belle Isle Ave. It's only in front of the school. So if we can make that from 15 to 2 hours, that would be great.
Okay. Members? Orders to a public hearing?
Thank you very much.
All those in favor? Aye, the ayes have it. We'll go back to the regularly scheduled order of business, unless you have anything else, Council. You all set? Okay. Okay. Item number 1. Excuse me. This to end Schedule 9 of Title 10, resident parking sticking areas by adding the following: Oak Island Road, both directions from Oak Island Road to Bridge Street. At this time, I'm going to open it up to proponents. People who are in favor can come to the podium. Seeing, hearing none, I'll close that side here and open up to opponents. Any opponents? Seeing, hearing none, I'll open this up to the council. Council Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. As you know, we just recently created approximately 8 new parking spaces, and that was due to the people on Oak Island Road that were displaced and the people on Bridge Street that were displaced. And my understanding is from talking to Nick Rystrom now, they're all finally striped. And what I'd like to do is designate at least 1 parking space to each person on those streets that was affected and no longer has parking on Oak Island Road or Bridge Street. So I'm asking the commission if they would approve that, and we can get on with the assigning the spaces ASAP.
Okay. Members of the commission? Nick, do you want
So I would have to check, but I don't believe you can assign city parking spots to anybody specific. I think what we can do is designate that resident parking in that area be designated for the residents on Oak Island Road and Bridge Street from Woodland Road to Glendale Street.
That'd work, yeah, that works fine.
Okay, very good. Any?
Yeah, but I think we only allow one resident parking sticker when we do resident parking, so I think I would like to limit that to one so that everybody has a fair shot at getting a parking space there. And I know we do that with our resident parking throughout the city.
Okay. Any other comments from the commissioners? Seeing, hearing none, I'll order that to a public hearing, John, and we'll get on it.
The other issue is, and I brought it up earlier, was from John Avenue down to Mills Avenue. All of the streets going in a westerly direction.
Okay, all right, I did write that up. Hold on a second, John.
Yeah.
Okay, this will go down, Chris, you have this as a late communication from Council Powers? Okay.
The other one, yeah,
Oak Island Road did go to public, so we can vote on it.
Yeah.
Right. I get that. Oh, that's a public hearing today, so we can vote on it.
exactly.
Okay. No, let's get it out of the way, because those people are waiting down there.
So I'd like to,
Make-
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to accept, number one, Oak Island Road and Bridge Street resident parking stickers from, but I would like to amend that to include only from Woodland Road to Glendale Street.
Those are, yeah, that's fine. Those are the residents that
area,
are more impacted.
Okay. I'll second that. All those in favor? Ayes, the ayes have it. So voted, Council.
Thank you.
Just for the record, it's going to be for people living on Bridge Street, Woodland.
Up to Woodland, not on Woodland.
that's not
Up
it.
to Woodland, right?
Oak Island Road and
Bridge
Bridge.
and Oak Island Road.
Right.
So two streets.
Bridge and Oak Island
We'll get stickers
between
for-
Glendale and Woodland Road.
All right.
Okay. We have a late communication from Council Powers, and this is our communication that we make all streets leading onto Mills Ave off of North Shore Road a do not enter residents only from Monday through Friday, 7 to 9. Council Powers.
Yes, and that would be, I guess, in a westerly direction. The reason for this is that many people who don't want to wait for that light on Mills Avenue with the turnaround, take those side streets. As you know, there are school buses down there, children getting on school buses, and people are concerned that, you know, there could be a serious accident down there. So I think if we do this, and initially for a couple of days we put some enforcement down there for the people who don't believe in do not enter signs, we can you know, make everyone aware that you just don't go down there. As you know, this past week, there was an accident down there at the corner of John Avenue. I went down and looked. The guide rail was all just pulled apart. With a couple of weeks or a month prior to that, there was another accident. And one of the other things I'd like to see down there is, of course, that's a State Highway 1A. I'd like to see more enforcement by the state police and perhaps our own police, because cars are coming off of that bridge 70, 80 miles an hour, and it's a wonder nobody's been killed down there recently. That's,
Members?
Counselor, can you just clarify what you're looking to do? You want
I'm
the
looking to
streets to be
make
one-way?
the
coming-
streets, if you're heading in a southerly direction, the streets that go in a westerly direction off of 1A, I'm looking to make them do not enter Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. That's when the heavy traffic is down there. And this was in an effort to stop people from just going down those streets where there are kids waiting for school buses and perhaps just to beat the light. And I don't believe the residents have any problem with that down there. I've spoken to them, and most of them have a real serious concern for the children that are waiting for those school buses. So I think it's important we do that. And then get some enforcement down there for a couple of days to make everyone believers.
So then, does that mean that during that time, anyone that would be getting into that neighborhood would have to go down to the light and use Mills Ave?
That's correct. That's probably the safest way to do it anyway, if you live down there.
Order of the public. Second? All those in favor, ayes, the ayes have it. We'll send this to a public hearing.
Thank you,
Counselor.
gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Okay, Councilman McKenna's taken care of. Item number 2 on the public hearings is for Council Zambuda. Council Zambuda requests to amend the following. Title 10 of Schedule 8, parking restrictions generally as follows. Location is Bellingham Ave, no parking this side from 230 Bellingham Ave to 240 Bellingham Ave. At this time, I'll open it up to opponents. Seeing, hearing none, I'll close that side of the hearing, open up to proponents. Councilor Zambudo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll repeat what I said when we ordered this to a public hearing at the last Traffic Commission meeting. This is, it's been no parking on that side for a long time. At some point, the sign got removed because it was not listed somehow on the books. It is a public safety disaster with parking there. There's no way to get even a car by, let alone an apparatus. There's no chance. You come around that corner, people come up Bellingham. If there's 2 cars, it's a standoff. They can't even, it's a dangerous situation. It really needs to be, the sign needs to be put back, and this time on the books, I guess. So somehow it was put up without being on the books, but it was up for years. And it's positively a public safety situation, and that's why I requested it. Thank you.
Any other proponents? People wishing to speak in favor? Name and address for the record, please.
Mark Barranco, 230 Bellingham Ave. I've lived there 4 years. 3.5 years I was there was no parking. Now, everybody has driveways on that side of the street. Now, on both sides of the street. Now, cars coming up Bellingham from the beach, confronted with cars coming down from Washington Square. Even when parking on one side, they have to slow down, maneuver. But parking on both sides, someone has to back up. And it happens, I live right there, I see it 4 times a week. So I think it's a good idea. Thank you.
Any other proponents? People wishing to speak in favor? Seeing and hearing none, I'll close that side of the hearing, open up to members of the commission. Members?
I'll make a motion to approve the parking restriction.
Second.
It's needed.
All those in favor, ayes, the ayes have it. We'll put that back on the books for you, Council Zambudo. Thank you. Okay. Item number 4 is, this is a request for handicap parking areas, and this is a request to amend Schedule 11 of Title 10, handicap parking areas by adding the following locations: 62 Kingman Avenue and 57 Stevens Street. Any proponents, people who wish to come here and speak on behalf of this change? Seeing, hearing none, I'll close that side of the hearing, open up to opponents. Any opponents? Seeing, hearing none, I'll close that side of the hearing, open it up to members of the commission and our handicap director, Ralph.
These are 2 that we had carried over from last month, and both of these should be approved. And the one on 57 Stevens Street is one that I'd like to see if we can get done immediately, because the problem that they have there is they have a handicap ramp to get into the house, and cars are going there and blocking, and she cannot get out of the vehicle with the lift on her vehicle to get into the ramp. So both of them should be approved. I'm in favor of approved with your approval.
I'm going to open it up to
Motion to approve.
have a second. All those in favor? Ayes, the ayes have it. Item number 5 is from Paul Rupp, Esquire, who would like to address the traffic commission in regards to one-way on Fairfield Street. At this time, I'll open it up to opponents first. Anybody who's opposed to this motion that's been filed? Seeing, hearing none, I will open it up to proponents. Mr. Rupp. Name and address for the record, please.
Paul Rupp, 371 Revere Street. Good afternoon, Commission. As you know, last time I was here, the issue was that Fairfield is a one-way from Revere Street, stops me from accessing my driveway. So I asked the board to bring this to public hearing to reverse its decision and take down the one-way. But in the alternative, I said that if that wasn't good for the neighbors, then I could still access my driveway if we went one way from the other direction, so that from Revere Street, Fairfield would be a do not enter, and it would be a one-way from Hastings down Fairfield, which is something I could support and would appreciate the board, the commission considering. Thank you.
Any other proponents, people wishing to speak on behalf of this? Ellen?
Our main concern on Fairfield Street is to park on both sides. As you remember, the last time I gave you the statistics, there were like 66 cars and room on one side for only 22 or 23 cars to park. So we're really doubled up. At that time, we were not aware that Mr. Rupp, I wasn't aware, that Mr. Rupp lived across the street, and he actually comes up Fairfield Street and goes right into his very narrow driveway, which is really a trip because I went down one day and it's a really narrow driveway. We just want parking on both sides. I think there would be no problem with continuing with switching it around. Of course, I called it like sort of monopoly, switching it around again, as long as we keep our two-sided parking. We want to be good neighbors, as Mr. Rupp wants to be a good neighbor also. And I did ask the rest of the people, I sent notices again to my street, anyone who was against this to come, and no one seems to be here. So I think we would be cooperative enough as long as we can keep our two-sided parking. That is what's so important. It will be confusing for a while because people haven't even gotten used to the one way of going down to Hastings, so it will take a little bit of time for them to get used to coming up. So I'm in favor of being a good neighbor. Thank you.
Any other people who wish to speak in favor? Any other? Council?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Councilor Arthur Guanasso, Ward 3 Councilor, members of the Commission. I also am in favor of this move. Mr. Rupp has pointed out very adequately that how the situation arises, whereas the best approach to his driveway would be coming from Hastings to Revere Street. He has a very narrow driveway. He's been there for several years. He's the type of family people that we want to keep within our city. And this little request that he makes of us is one that's worthy of your attention. The residents obviously wanted the double-sided parking on both sides of the street. So the only concession that we ask that you, the only change that we ask you to do is to do it, switch the direction of the one-way. And having met with many people, they can live with that, you know, and it's acceptable to them. So I ask you if you would kindly do this in favor of the citizens who live on Fairfield Street, and we'd be very much obliged for that. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Any questions or any concern, I'd be glad to answer.
Just one question to the council. I think that's a
Chief.
very narrow street with the parking on both sides. I have concerns about apparatus getting up and down the street. We've discussed this before.
Nick and I discussed this morning, and we went up and made some measurements today. It's going to be very difficult, especially during the winter, to get an apparatus down that street. It has different lengths and widths at the top, the middle, and down the end.
Well, could we make it at the beginning of the street that there be no parking for like 20 feet in, as they do on other streets?
And have certain zones We could do that, Arthur. We could look at certain parts of the street and restrict parking on sides where people can't get by. And Nick and I went down, I went down with members of me, and Nick went down, and we kind of compiled our, we couldn't get a truck through. When we had I parked my truck next to a car, and we couldn't get a pickup truck through there without pulling the mirrors into, so in the event that a fire apparatus or a larger vehicle would have a very difficult time squeezing through there. So I know, Nick, you did a little bit more in-depth
So
work
just
than I
to
did.
clarify, I was there today. The curb to curb, it's 24 feet for the length of the street, except for the end where there is no curb. From an engineering standpoint, that's not enough to have parking on two sides, and it's not enough to have travel in both directions either. The safest and the correct way to do is to have parking on one side and have it be a one-way.
Well, point of information, they've been doing this for several years and without incident. And there wasn't a situation years back when there was a fire there. And the apparatus and everything else was able to approach that fire without any problem. And, this isn't something that just occurred. There's been double-sided parking for 40 years. And so,
I think the biggest difference, Arthur, is they were allowing people to pull up on the sidewalk and park. And since they've enforced no parking on the sidewalks due to issues with handicap accessibility issues, that they were starting to ticket and fine people for parking on the sidewalk. So the next best thing was to try to remove the no parking on that side of the street and put the cars in the street so they could legally park without getting tagged. I think we've tried it to this point. At this time, I don't believe there's been any incidents, but I don't know if the chief has had the opportunity to have.
I think I
them
have a
down
solution,
there.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the ADL regulations are 36 inches for ADL to keep, for handicap accessibility. When we configure, we could just make the sidewalk narrower to come to that dimension, and we have adequate parking on both sides for everybody.
That
Excuse
is
me?
That is.
We have written literature here we have written literature that we can tell you that it is 36 inches. I have it right in front of me. I'll submit this to the chair.
That's also
for review.
that's a clear dimension, so you have to take into account also utility poles and things like that.
Well, we could make this sidewalk where the poles aren't. There's only poles on one side of the street. So, there's a lot of ways we can handle this without making reference to judgment. And what I'm saying is, give us a little opportunity to alleviate some of the problems and go forward with it. Just give us a chance to work on don't make a decision based. What I would like to do is the decision be made quickly that we reverse the one-way direction, so allowing this gentleman to access his home and his parking lot. That I would ask it to be done immediately. And the rest of it is, this is from, as of June 15, 2017. That's really not dated. An ADA compliant sidewalk is 36 inches, 3 feet. Those sidewalks can be constructed wider than this.
That's clear, 36 clear.
36 inches is federal. Massachusetts law is 48 inches. Massachusetts law supersedes federal law.
Okay, so we can make it we can talk about this at another time in conversation. What I'm asking is that don't rush to judgment, and please just reverse the one-way, and we can have further. I said on the parking review
I don't think there's an issue with reversing the one-way. At this time, do we get further information? Because if we were going to push that sidewalk back, it's not clear in my head. If you got to.
Well, my point of contention is if you decide it that way, then there's no sense of making it one way. If you decide that one-sided parking is going to be the avenue you want, then there's no sense of making that street one way.
Well, it's not an easy fix, Chris, because it's 24 feet wide. So even if you had parking on one side and you had, a lot of cars parked on one side, and you had a vehicle coming up the street, and you had an emergency vehicle coming down the street, or even somebody coming down, if you had like a trash truck coming up the street and somebody coming down the street, then somebody's gonna have to back up and pull into a parking space to get out of the way, even if it's no parking on one side. So it's a difficult decision, but at this time, I would make a motion at this time that we accept the fact that we changed it, the one-way, reverse the direction, and table the issue of two-sided parking until we can go out and do some further.
Thank you. I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Can I just ask a question before
Sure.
that?
Absolutely, Nick.
Mr. Rupp, when you're traveling westbound on Revere Street, are you saying that you're unable to turn into your driveway?
Virtually unable. You have to be an extremely skilled driver, and you have to do a three-point turn in the middle of Revere Street, blocking both sides of the road, so that I can get the car straight.
So I would just disagree with that. I was there last week. I pulled into your driveway and I turned around and I went the other way.
What kind of car were you driving?
I have a Dodge Nitro. It's like an SUV.
Yeah, I'd love to see you do it. You pulled straight in? Oh.
Nick,
I think it's,
no, all due respect, he does this on a daily basis. You went down one time, and you might have hit the traffic going the right way at the right time, at the right instance. He is a gentleman, like I'm saying to you all. He's the type of people we want to stay
especially
in our
if you head
community.
towards the beach. If you headed-
And
I
a
don't disagree with
little-
that.
A little consideration goes a long way.
But I'm just trying to vet it out because you're affecting an entire street of people for one person.
Well, but it's both, but what I'm doing is I'm affecting traffic every single time I attempt to do that left-hand turn into my driveway. And when I used to be able to go around and down Fairfield Street, I would have to stop at the end of Fairfield Street and wait 5 minutes on average for traffic to clear in either direction and no pedestrian activity to cross. It really was hard for me to get used to that. Now when I do that, I block one side, and I still have to wait. So I'm backing up traffic behind me to the bridge. And then I've got to wait for someone to be kind enough to recognize what I'm attempting to do. And Revere Street's a parking lot, 9 times out of 10. So it's just an unsafe turn to make for me and my family. It's not safe for other drivers or for pedestrians. So yes, it can be done if you're very skilled and you have a lot of time in your hands. Thank you.
I can understand when you're going east, trying to turn, it's tight. Turning from the west or coming down Fairfield, to me, those are the same.
But when you did it, you had to show the drivers heading east that you were turning to the right. That gives a false indication of what direction that you're going in. You
No, I'm
can't just
going
stay, you're going to turn left, so you have to turn your wheels a little right in order to swing it to go left. That gives the wrong message for the people who are traveling east of where you're going. It's very dangerous.
When I was there, I didn't have to turn out the way you're talking. Now, we have different cars, I agree with that. Either way, if you're coming across Fairfield or if you're turning off of Revere Street, you're stopping traffic in both those lanes to get across.
I wait at
So-
Fairfield. I wait.
Okay,
In fairness, Nick, what time of the day did you make this event?
in the afternoon.
Yeah, was there traffic there?
Yeah, there's traffic on Revere Street all the time.
Well, I'm saying, well, there isn't all the time. Sometimes there's some lulls within the flow. What I'm saying is that more often than not, when you're coming home from work, you're hitting a lot of traffic, and you can't negotiate that. And as Paul was saying, to make the turn, you have to go right with your wheels heading that way, and then bear left. And so you're giving an indication to the driver on the left that you're going to go right, and then that's not the case. You're going to go left somewhat. I don't mean extreme left, bear in mind. I mean a little left. So you are giving a falsehood to the driver that it could lead to an accident. But in any event, I implore the commission to, as the chair has stated, that we take it under advisement and but please turn it the one way around.
Any other comments from the, all right, so at this time, I have a motion on the floor to reverse the direction of the one-way on Fairfield Street, and we will table the issue of two-sided parking until we can get some further information from Chief Bright as to whether it's safe to transit. So I would say we reconvene this at next month's
Thank
meeting
you,
to
Mr.
determine
Chairman. I
what's
appreciate.
happening on that.
Thank
in
you,
that regard.
Commissioners. I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, I'll second the
She
motion,
has a
Mr.
question?
Chairman.
It's 48, but it has to be free and clear. So if you're coming down the street, just because you can measure 4 feet, if you have a telephone pole or a sign pole or a hydrant or anything like that, it has to be free and clear. So it has to be free and clear 4 feet to the extremities of sign poles, hydrants, utility poles, bollards, any type of guardrails, any type of obstruction.
But if there wasn't any on this side of the street, I have 78 inches clearance from where two
You
wheels are
still
on.
need 48 inches clearance to the edge of the
But
curb
this is
stone.
76
Yeah.
inches clearance.
Well, she's trying to figure out what the measurement is in her head. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
She hasn't measured.
I haven't measured.
She hasn't measured with a tape, and she can show you the pictures.
But at that point, you gotta take the sidewalks out too, Arthur.
So
Because you
two
have to
wheels
widen the
is not
street.
going to be accepted even though it's within the legal
It has to be,
limits?
you would have to widen the roadway in order to accomplish that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor? Ayes, the ayes have it. I have item number 6 here, and this is, yeah. This got carried over. What do we do with this case? Do we table it?
This was already approved back in August 24th.
Okay,
We
very
already
good.
approved it.
All right. Item number 7 is from Chief Gatto. He would like to address the Traffic Commission members regarding the current rate of business parking permits, along with restrictions put on businesses with storefronts under the new program. I make a motion that we table this at this time, as Chief Gatto is not here. Have a second. All those in favor? Ayes, the ayes have it. Item number 1, under request. This is a request from Council Ira Novoselsky requesting to amend Schedule 9 of Title 10, resident parker sticker areas by adding the following location, and that is Walnut Avenue. The direction is both sides, and it's from Shirley Avenue to Campbell Avenue between 7 a.m. to 12 p.m., Monday through Friday, except holidays. Council Novoselsky.
Ira Novoselsky, 53B Hone Street, Ward 2 Counselor. This is per request of the neighbors. As we all know, the folks using the T are extending their walks further up the street. So the folks from Walnut Ave, between Shirley and Campbell, have requested this. So we ask that it be public hearing on it.
Okay.
Thank you.
This time I make a motion, we order this to a public hearing. Do I have a second? All those in favor? Ayes, the ayes have it. Item number 3 is a request to amend Schedule 11 of Title 10, handicapped persons parking areas by adding the following locations. The first location is at 29 Delano Ave and 566 Washington Avenue. Ralph, do you have any information on these 2 areas at this time?
1 second, something just came to my attention. I just want to check something on the original application.
Okay.
I did.
Okay.
The, sorry about that. Let's just open this back up. The 2 addresses that we had were Delano Avenue. Both of these are ones that we should put right up as emergency basis. Delano Avenue is a 95-year-old World War to a veteran who has an issue with the parking where he is, that he's having walking. He has a healthcare proxy in New Hampshire, so it's been tough getting the applications and everything in. It's probably been about a 2-month process that I've been trying to get all the information in so that it can come here. And I've been also working with Mark Silvestri from Veterans Affairs to try and get this in. So I wanted to see if we could just approve this one and let it go through. And when it's not needed anymore, hopefully it won't be soon, they will notify us to have it removed.
Okay. On Delano Avenue, at this time, I'll make a motion that we pass this until we have the public hearing, and we'll put it up in the interim, and at the time of the public hearing, we'll officially vote it in.
Well, what I wanted to do is an emergency basis, if we could buy
Yeah,
that, 'cause
we will.
brought it up.
I will put it up as an emergency, but to be done properly, we still need to take a vote, and we have to have a public hearing on it. So it's kind of a formality, Ralph. We'll just have the public hearing next month, but I will instruct the sign department to get this up next week.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? And on, do I have a second on that?
Can you just clarify, what's the emergency around it?
He's a
Healthcare proxy.
Healthcare proxy. He's a 95-year-old gentleman, and he can't get to his front door from the driveway. It's the unit, and he can't walk to where it is. He can drive, but the front door where the parking is right there. He's very limited as to his walking ability.
Okay.
All those in favor? Aye, the ayes have it. On 566 Washington Avenue, I'm going to call Council Patch to the podium. I believe there may be an address conflict there, Charlie, is that correct?
Yes. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members. Actually, we're asking for the handicap sign to be put on the corner of Goldie Street, because it's the corner house on Washington and Goldie, and she has no driveway, can't park on that side of the street of Washington Ave, and she's an elderly lady, and I think you guys know her. Remember? So, when she comes home at night, she has a problem parking, because another problem we're having here that I'm working with the Traffic Commission is the people who bought the house on the beginning of Goldie Street have a company, and there was several vans parking there. And so if you could also make this an emergency, have it done as soon as possible until it's permitted.
At this time, I will make a motion that we do this on an emergency basis and make it legal at the next regular meeting of the Traffic Commission and vote it in properly. Ralph?
Just as a matter of reference to Council Patch, I did have that in the email that is going on the corner of Washington and Goldney, and as an emergency basis because of that issue. And I sent them the pictures, so it's all set.
Thank you, Ralph. Thank you very much.
Do I have a second? Aye. The ayes have it. All in favor? All so voted. I think that's it, isn't it?
If I may, I thought he had sent a communication into Sergeant Janino, and I can't find it, but I'm sure I could have sworn I sent it by email, that we put on for a public hearing for next month for a permit parking on Garfield Avenue between Dix and Blake Street. And those hours would be 9, you do have it, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, cool. 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. to take into consideration the parents taking the kids to school. That's why they're
9 to what?
9 a.m. to 1 p.m., Monday to Friday, except holidays. I didn't see it on my copy of the agenda, so that's why I'm bringing it up.
So that was from Dix to where?
Dix to Blake.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a motion to order this to a public hearing? Second, all those in favor? So voted. What do you got? Ralph, good.
As a late motion, if we could include 466 Park Avenue to be put onto the agenda for next month for a handicap sign. There's been a situation with that we can't find an application for it that was originally done, so I told her that I would mention it at this meeting, and I will have all the paperwork done for the next meeting.
Okay. So at this time, I'll make a motion that we have a public hearing on 466 Park Avenue for the issuance of a handicap parking sign. Do I have a second? All those in favor, aye. The ayes have it. Motion to adjourn?
I'll get in touch with her.
All those in favor? Aye. The ayes have it. Adjourned.